Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Chin Music. As always, I'm Andrew Benson, hosting alongside Andrew Lukuski. We're excited to announce that today marks the beginning of two new segments. X marks the spot, where we take a look at some crazy and funny social media reactions of the week, as well as Fantasy Friday, a new segment where we give you some of our insights on the fantasy baseball world and what to make of it. Before all that, though, the elephant in the room. The New York Mets have swept the Philadelphia Phillies 3-0 at Citi Field. The Mets now own the best record in baseball at 18-7, and the Phillies are now 13-12 with a four-game losing streak. We're gonna start. We're gonna discuss each team in depth and our thoughts on them. But I want to start with this. When Steve Cohen first bought the team, he said he wanted to make the Mets the quote East Coast Dodgers. And when they asked him what he meant by that, he said, "Well, I want to make sure that we're contending each and every year, basically being playoff contenders every year, having a consistent system that never fails to there's no really rebuild. You reload and you retool kind of thing." And as I sat there and watched the series today, it's become apparent that the Mets are more closer now than ever to achieving that. I'd say that this team, the 2025 team, is probably maybe not the best team, but maybe the most well-rounded team that I've seen at least in my lifetime in Mets history. And what I mean by that is kind of on two facets: run manufacturing and run prevention. Now, run prevention, the Mets have been astounding at, and you saw it really in this series. Their starting pitching, again, has been way above anyone's expectations of them. I'd say far beyond just being okay. They've been very good, despite not having many big names. The bullpen, outstanding, with the exception of Edwin Diaz, as we'll talk about again. Um, and their defense is something that I'll definitely highlight later because I think as I watch the Mets, their defense has been it's really the little things. I think when you've watched the last 27 innings, as I have, you see that there are things in their defense that they do um, that might not be on the box score necessarily, but they're things that help teams win. Good teams do them, and these Mets have done them to a T this year. So the fact that they were able to do as well as they have so far in all those aspects, despite Juan Soto hitting 233, is remarkable. If I told you that Juan Soto was going to hit 233, by what is it? April 25th will be the day that this releases. You would have expected that they'd be in last place. But as I said, they have the best record in baseball. And this team has not even started to peak yet in terms of run production. So eventually, Juan Soto is going to heat up. He has a yearly average of 34 home runs, 950 OPS. We know who he is. And when he does heat up, the sky's the limit. So, Andrew, your thoughts?
On the unserious baseball team we watched or the serious baseball team we watched?
Both. Well, I think we're gonna. I want to start with the Mets more in depth, and then obviously when we go to the Phillies, we'll get into that.
Yeah, you're not going to get any crazy deep digging thoughts from me out of the Mets because as a petty baseball fan I refuse to give them any genuine compliments other than they just simply outplayed the Phillies for three straight days in every facet of the game, with the exception of blowing leads. Um, they were just better at everything. I don't know. That's the best all around way for me to put it because I do not stat watch the same way you do, I think. But just everything from learning which pitches to take to moving guys over to getting guys in to pitching to knowing when to execute things the right way. Um, the Mets did everything and the Phillies did not.
Yeah, I think over the past two games, again, they've done really well in terms of pitching. Griffin Canning in particular started game two. He wasn't dominant by any means, but he was certainly effective. And he's one of the testaments to this front office and what they've been able to do with what they have. So one thing I noticed particularly when Canning was pitching was, and people have said this as much about what they've been able to do with him. He was one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year. But what they were able to do is basically say, like, your off speed's really good, your fastball sucks. So what we're gonna do is just throw your off speed more. It's called, or the term for it is pitching backwards. So you establish with your off speed, and that actually makes your fastball more effective. Because they're sitting on the off speed. So um, the batters get blown away a little bit by a subpar fastball. So when I was watching Canning pitch in game two, I really saw that. He was starting off with lots of sliders, lots of changeups. So then when he would throw the fastball in late counts, he would tie him up, especially that the high inside fastball was really effective. So that's just another thing that I thought that that's just another testament to Jeremy Hefner, the pitching coach and the pitching lab, so to speak, that they've created in the last couple of years. Meanwhile, Christopher Sanchez, who also started that game, departed after 2 innings with, quote, forearm soreness. As of, I couldn't find much on him recently, but I think, yeah, there's no real diagnosis, right?
The
Other than,
Phillies keep injury secrets like a middle-aged man having an affair. You don't know anything about an injury that the Phillies are having until they are on the injured list. So we're not going to hear a word about it. I can tell you that right now. I did my own research and I got a whole lot of just word webs from Rob Thompson.
yeah. Speaking of Rob Thompson, I wanted to talk about this later, but now that we're on the subject, he's come under a lot of fire, I think, recently. Just for I think fans attribute the team's lack of preparedness in part to him. There was a moment on Game Three with when Juan Soto threw out Castellanos at home plate where he was late to challenge the call. Not that it would have mattered because the replay showed that he was out, but just the fact is that it seems that fans are starting to lose a little bit of faith in Rob, and especially what he's been saying. I think in the post game conferences, like he when they asked him about Diaz's balk that got taken away, he was like, "Oh, I'll tell our pitchers to do that." And not that it would have mattered because he walked the next guy anyway, but I think um, when at least from what I've seen on my end, it seems that Thompson's kind of come out a little bit flat and maybe isn't managing this team as effectively as he could have. Not to say that it's all on him. Obviously, the players have not been great either, but
Is that a segue into my thoughts?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the minority with this that I put little to no blame on him, with the exception of this of the little annoyances about like not challenging a call in a timely manner. But the rest of it's on the guys. The rest of it is if and I think this is more of a wider belief that I have about Major League Baseball in the 21st century is that managers play such less of a role than they used to. I feel like, and I don't know. Ultimately, if like the if the nine best guys, eight and whatever pitcher is in that week, if those guys are on the field and are getting the at bats that they should, and they're healthy, then the rest of it's on the team. Um, I don't buy the lineup stuff matters. The way he sets his lineup is going to have an effect on the guys. I don't know. I don't buy a lot of the stuff that people are having problems with him about, and I've seen lots of stuff about there just needs to be a new voice. Um, well, the guys who have been on the team since, and I'm using Harper as a benchmark because the only one longer than him, I think, is Nola now. I'm using Harper as a benchmark. He's had three different managers, so the change of voice thing, first of all, hasn't worked, and second of all, is just a bad idea. Um, I don't know. I don't. I think I don't know. There's baseball players enjoy their consistency, and again, and if anybody's calling for his job, I would say that uh, again, firing a manager that has of the three of the last of this era of Phillies baseball has widely been the most popular among the players and fans for the most part too. Um, so that's my long-winded answer to I don't really place much blame on him. These are full-grown adults making more money than any of us will ever see in our entire lifetime. If they're not ready for the game, that's on them. Rob Thompson's not a babysitter.
yeah, I agree. Well, I think some of the fans the manager's always the scapegoat, right? When the players aren't playing, and
Because
sometimes the
he's the only one that can go. You can't fire a guy on a 5 year guaranteed contract. And nobody's going to care if the first base coach gets fired to make a, or the infield outfield coach if the team's not feeling well. Like that's not a move that people are going to care about. And that makes enough of a significant difference. So yeah, it's the manager because you can't fire the players. Um, and once they got the contracts, they're there. So I don't know.
yeah. For I think we can both agree that the Philly bullpen definitely did not do the team any favors this series, but Joe Ross in particular looked pretty great game two when he came in to relieve Sanchez after he departed. I think he pitched 3 innings at least from what I saw for he definitely has not been having the best season, but he looked very effective. So that provides a glimmer of hope, at least that some of these guys are at least some of them are have the potential to not be completely awful for the team.
Yeah, he was an under the radar guy that honestly I didn't put much stock into because at the time when he was signed, he was the Walker spot, which because we all thought that Walker wouldn't be around. And there was discussion of him being he'd be the sixth starter swing guy. So I was just like, I don't. He's a good guy to have around, but yeah, he's somebody that they're very much in need of right now, especially if Sanchez ends up having to miss a start or two, because I think he's the next guy up. Although Ranger's supposed to be back soon, but once again, we get little to no information on injury updates for the Phillies. So I agree. He is not who I want the highlight of the Phillies bullpen to be, though. So I am not I will not be overjoyed that the mop up guy is doing his job at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually thinking about this the other day, right? So you assume the Phillies rotation will be pretty healthy, fingers crossed, right, for you, come July when Painter's supposed to be ready. So I was curious if you thought with the bullpen being as bad as they are right now, if they continue to be that bad, is what do you think's the game plan? Do you think Painter could go in the bullpen, or that he would try to push Walker potentially? Like I don't know what
They're
you
gonna
would
do a
do.
six, I think, for a couple reasons. But I'll get into the bullpen thing first. No, just no, because I think some guys are able to do that. I don't. I would not chance it with somebody who has already gone through surgery, who has already had his time delayed. He's comfortable as a starter. I view him as somebody who's going to be a good starter. The Phillies, I think, view him as somebody who's going to be a good starter. Most of Major League Baseball does. They would not put a guy who's going to be a good reliever in a top 10 prospect spot, I think. So I don't think you touch that. I don't see a reason to touch that. I see a reason to stick him in the rotation and run with a six man for a while because one, they have to manage his innings because he's coming off injury. I think they're shooting for 100 or 120 innings over the season for him. And that probably means about 50 or 60 in the majors because he's got to build up in the minors for a while first. Second, well, with the exception of Luzardo and Sanchez, I don't know what's going on. We're not going to know what's going on with Suarez at the moment, um, and he hasn't been the epitome of health. The Phillies' rotation, as good as it's been, is getting older. So even if they're not hurt, all of them could benefit from an extra day off. I think for the
Yeah,
most part.
that's true.
Um, even like I think Zach Wheeler's going to end the year probably once again in the top five for Cy Young, but he's also 34 or 35 now maybe. And 6 days might not be a bad idea for him. So I think the plan should be to go to a six man if everybody's healthy. This is pretending that Suarez, Sanchez, Nola, Wheeler, and Luzardo are all pitching well and healthy. Um, so that's a everything's working perfectly planned. If somebody's hurt, then they're still going to have to probably stick with a five. But I would be very, 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 very displeased to see him come up in the bullpen.
Yeah. Now, going back to the Phillies offense, I think one of the biggest factors I think in this series, because I think the Mets won every game, maybe not the last one comfortably, But I'd say that it was not as close as the score made it out to be. And a big part of that was because I think the Phillies offense was just pretty atrocious in terms of hitting with runners on base, runners in scoring position. You saw that I definitely in game three. There were two instances where they had bases loaded, one out, including obviously the top of the 10th, and they were unable to come through with it. So I think that Castellanos at one point was 0 for 7, 0 for 8, and they did turn it around. I'd say in game three, they were a lot more competitive. But I think when the chips came down, they were really unable to capitalize on the opportunities they had. And I think that's what kind of led to a sweep as opposed to 2-1 or even winning the series here.
Well, when the entire team is built around swinging, that's bound to happen. It's happened for 3 years now. The entire team slumps together and gets hot together. They'll rip off 20 wins in the month of June because they're all going to get really hot. And then after the All-Star break, they'll do the exact same thing again. Castellanos swinging at a low and away slider is as predictable as the sun rising in the morning. It's infuriating to watch. And honestly, and people don't rag on him, and I get it. He's the man in Philly. Harper's guilty of it too. So is Schwarber. So is Turner. They all are. I hate teams walking too much. It's boring. But this team is on the polar opposite end of that. I think Schwarber's obviously got the most walks and he's always going to have the most walks. He's the only one that can be semi-patient at times. But like all Turner for the most part too. Turner gets 3 or 4 pitches out of the zone every at bat because everybody knows that he's going to swing. If he gets on base with his speed, it could easily be a double. He just likes to swing. Castellanos too. Bohm does it too. Rojas, Edmundo Sosa, all of them. They all swing the bat. Like I'm convinced that they don't look where the ball is going outside of the pitcher's hand, unless it's clearly going to be 5 feet in front of the plate. Like some of the swings have just they've been atrocious, and Castellanos is the leading candidate for guy who swings at the most pitches that are not strikes even out of the hand. So that's the problem right there. It has nothing to do with the skill to nothing that the skill set that the guys have. The guys were signed for reasons. They were all and they're edging out of their primes now. I think a couple of them, they're on the outer edge. They were all some of the best hitters in baseball at one point for a reason. So it's not a lack of skills, it's a lack of patience.
Yeah, and I think it seems to be clashing because from what I've heard, they've been coaching the guys to actually take more pitches. So I think that's like a case of easier said than done, where when you've been conditioned, like you said, like when you go into routines, you go into habits, like just with Painter with starting these guys, their hitting approach, they've been doing this since high school, college. When they've built success and built their careers on free swinging, and all of a sudden you're telling them, yeah, start taking these pitches. I think it really clashes with their instincts. They definitely, I don't want to say lost, but a lot of the guys, you were seeing a lot of uncompetitive at bats, and I think that's another big difference between the Mets and the Phillies this series is I feel like the Mets at pretty much every point, Pete had some ugly ones, but they were working counts, they were doing productive at bats. I feel like anytime there was a runner on second with less than 2 outs, they figured out a way to get him on third. So those kind of things, again, it's the little things that matter over 162. And I think you're starting to see that I guess a Phillies team that's really just kind of searching for an identity at the moment, with not a whole lot. They've been winning games up until this series, of course, but I think at some point your talent can only take you so far. You're so far, and this Phillies team is undoubtedly talented, but I think they're kind of just lacking some direction right now.
I don't know if it's necessarily the lack of identity. It's a lack of adaptability. And that's the most frustrating part. Um, and I left JT out of my last little rant, so I'll pick on him now. Um, he's he wants to keep playing, obviously, and he'll sign somewhere else. I hope it's not with Philadelphia after the season. He's too old and is going to want too much money. He is still playing as if he was the guy who was the best catcher in baseball for 3 years. He's not anymore. He's still clearly swinging to be the 20 home run, 80 RBI, 275 guy. He's not going to be that anymore. So the problem is that these guys, Castellanos and um, uh, JT, I think are the best examples because they need to adapt the most. They're unwilling to change, like they're unwilling to not be the free swingers anymore. And they can, we can point to all the successes they've had in their careers. They're not having success right now, and if they want to continue in the game of baseball after their contracts are up with the Phillies, they need to adapt because nobody wants a 34-year-old catcher who is swinging at every single pitch and is hitting 210 for the year. Same thing with a right fielder who who is in the lineup for his bat um, to strike out as many times as he does on very frustrating pitches. So I would I understand what you mean with the lack of identity. I think the identity is there to an extent. It is a lack of willing to adapt to the problems that they're having this early in the season. We are what 26, 27 games in right now. So we're approaching, 20% of the way through the season and the cracks are already showing.
Yeah. I think I definitely think that in terms of the matchup, that again, it wasn't a complete. I don't want to say it was domination or a beatdown because I really don't think it was. I think it was more so when you put a team that's objectively playing good right now against a team that was objectively playing bad, you're gonna see like there is a distinct difference, and I think anyone will tell you that watch the series that as of right now, the Mets are definitively playing better than the Philadelphia Phillies. But I don't think that the gap in talent between these two teams is so large as to where they should be sweeping, even at Citi Field. So I guess as we'll look ahead, obviously the Mets will go to Washington for I believe it's a 3 game series, and then the Phillies will head to Chicago. I guess what's something that you want to see in the up and coming series to kind of ease your fears as to make sure that things get back on track?
Score runs, multiple runs in multiple innings. They went even the games that they win, they're scoring lots of runs all at once and then not for the rest of the game. They tagged Jordan Hicks in the Giants series for 5 runs in the first inning and did not hit after that. So this final score of 5-2, you're 5-2 or 5-3, I don't remember. Looks great. It looks great. You're like, all right, solid win. But when you see that they got one hit after the first inning, it raises red flags. So I want like continuous offense. I'm not looking for a double digit win. I don't even need double digit runs, but consistent, a run in the first, 2 runs in the third, another one in the fifth, like a consistently spread out offense to show that they can do it over the course of a game against multiple pitchers.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. As for the Mets, I mean, obviously, and Steve Cohen himself said it. He tweeted out basically like saying, "Guys, this is going to regress to the mean. Like this is great, but obviously they're not going to win forever. They're going to lose games. They're going to lose series. They're going to have losing streaks. But I think you have to be really encouraged from what you saw. Going back to the defense, and I know I touched back on it earlier. Um, I've been very, very impressed with how the Mets have been able to play defense at all 3 levels. Obviously, with the catching tandem like Luis Torrens and Hayden Sanger, who is obviously a little bit more unheralded, but both guys who are defense first catchers, they've played great. I think, only stolen base I remember was Bryce Harper stealing third on Edwin Diaz, which again, I will touch on that. But they've been great from a defensive standpoint from the catchers. The middle infield, I think Vientos had a bobble in game 3. But outside of that, they haven't made any mistakes. And the outfield has been very impressive. Brandon Nimmo had some great catches in left field. Tyrone Taylor, I showed him some love at the first episode from what I've seen it. So the Phillies again, they wasted 2 opportunities with bases loaded, 1 out. I've noticed a lot of time that the Phillies will hit fly balls to moderate to shallow outfield, and the way that the Mets have been able to um, attack the path of the baseball, so to enable to line themselves up to make a strong throw is something that really won't get talked about a whole lot, but they've been able to do that to a T. And you really saw it when, of course, Soto had the throw on Castellanos. That was one, but Taylor throwing out Schwarber for the double play in I think it was game two. No, game three. Game three when Taylor gunned out Schwarber on a routine fly ball to center. I think that's really showing you that they're managing to take their defense to the next level, which is something really encouraging. Taylor in general had a great series, even though he didn't necessarily do a whole lot with the bat. How he impacted on the base paths, how he impacted with his defense. It's been really encouraging for a team that's lost Jose Siri for the next couple of months and is kind of in purgatory almost, starting Taylor and whoever they can find to make up for it.
You're gonna I'm out of thoughts on this series. I'm not even wearing Phillies gear tonight. You're not going to catch me in one article of clothing representing the embarrassment of a team that plays in Citizens Bank Park at the moment.
Fair enough. I before we move on from this series, I do want to touch on Diaz because that dude is starting to drive me crazy. So
Boo hoo.
yeah, yeah, I know you don't want to hear it right now, but
Don't.
that was far from a perfect series, and he's really starting to annoy me. So in the ninth inning, he came up. Totally get it. Like he just let up the bomb to Stott what in game one. Like, what are you gonna do? It's fine. He didn't blow the game. But this guy, um, when you allow Harper to essentially walk to third base because all you have to do is look at the guy and you can't be bothered to look at Harper at second base because it takes that much of your focus to throw strikes as a major league closer, as one of the highest paid closers in baseball, is ridiculous. I don't understand. And the lack of consistency is mind-boggling from this guy. Then afterwards, this guy is disengages twice from I forget the batter, but Castellanos was on first base. Disengages twice, then disengages a third time, basically balks him over to second base, and then signals to the trainer on the dugout like, "Hey, I'm hurt." Like I don't. And meanwhile, all he had to do to not be in that scenario in the first place, granted the umps took it away, they shouldn't have. I'll say that much. Obviously, he balked before he made the motion. And not that again, not that it mattered, but just the simple fact that like it doesn't seem like this dude has his head in the game. Like and I've seen this for years, and it bothers the shit out of me. This guy he does not have a closer's mentality. He has a closer's talent. He does not have a closer's mentality. And I have been trying to be patient with him. When he's good, he's great. Obviously, he had one of the greatest closer seasons of all time in 2022, and he's shown you that he has that talent in him, even after he got injured in the WBC. But just I don't get it. I don't get what's up with him, and he just makes stupid, lazy mistakes, and it can cost this team. He nearly costed this team that game just off of not being locked in and just letting stupid mistakes and really just being sloppy. So Max Kranick was able to come in and ultimately get out of that jam. But if they had lost that game, I can promise you I'd have a lot more to say on him.
He's the only thing that brought me joy um, this week. He's been fun to watch as a Phillies fan, with the exception of 2022. It has brought me great joy to watch Edwin Diaz consistently blow games, or at least put games in jeopardy since 2000 and what, 18?
Yeah,
18 or 19?
yeah. Yeah, it's infuriating. I saw a poll on Mets Twitter the other day, and it was like, if you were to rank the Mets by their bullpen in terms of like who's the best reliever, like where would you rank Edwin Diaz? And the prevailing answer was like third or fourth, which I would agree with. I think Minter's top two easily. I'd say Kranick, despite him getting tagged with a bunch of earned runs in this series, has shown you that he's nails. Um, this whole bullpen's been great except for him, honestly. Like the majority of guys in the bullpen are guys that I would trust to hold leads, and they have, with the exception of him. So I hope he figures it out. I'm not gonna say like remove him from the closer's job, because I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt. As crazy as that seems to say, or as crazy as that feels to say, but I'm just tired of it. He needs to work it out. He's well removed from the injury, so that's not an excuse anymore. So I don't get it. No. So actually, so speaking on this injury, um, he left due to quote hip cramping. Okay, and then when they asked him about it later that day, the trainers noticed, and I'm not making this up, that one leg was longer than the other. I don't know what that means. Can someone explain to me what that means? How is one leg longer than the other? I've taken sports medicine classes. I've never heard of that in my life. Like I like and I said this to my friends. I honestly think that when he motioned to the trainer, like he was cooked. He was done. He's just like, get me out of here. I'm hurt. My hip. Like I don't want to pitch. I'm not ready for this. Like and that sounds crazy. I know. But like I wouldn't rule it out. Like at some point you just like oh my God. I'm gonna stop myself before I spend 30 minutes on this guy.
We're
But
time
more
limited on podcasts, and most of the Phillies fans listening don't really care.
all right. Um, so yeah, looking ahead, I guess we'll move on to our next segment. So we wanted to introduce X Marks the Spot, which is a new segment where basically both of us find some funny slash crazy social media overreactions, hot takes, tweets, and just kind of talk about them and how crazy they are or whatever. So you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I have two on Blue Sky because I no longer use X. Um, and uh, I had a pun in my head about how the Phillies don't have blue skies ahead or something, and I really just lost it. So I'm just gonna go right into my um first one. This one makes more sense if you've been to Citizens Bank Park. Uh, right above the bullpens in the 200 level, there's a sign that says "Need help?" question mark in Phillies writing, and then has the text has the quick instructions to text the what I would assume is the ballpark security to the 5-digit number space what's your problem, something like that, whatever it is. And so a bunch of people have started texting that number Phillies space bullpen in over the last couple of days, and the ballpark security has actually been getting it. So I'm looking at it right now. This is a mock-up of it on my phone at the moment, but that's what I'm thinking of right now. And so people have been texting that number. And obviously there are two parts of it is funny. First of all, it's just a stupid thing to do, but I find it amusing. Second of all, the Phillies aren't even playing at home right now. They were playing in New York. So I found that amusing to to one even think of that, and two to actually go text that number. And
If
my the guy who posted this, garlic buffalo at gobirds.biz on Blue Sky. I have another one actually. This one was a little bit more amusing from Steve Wagner on Blue Sky. Quote, the off day just pulled ahead of the Phillies 3-1 with a 3-run homer in the eighth inning off Jordan Romano. It is an insurmountable lead. And just
let me tell you, I know this obviously isn't like a tweet, but for me, I honestly I should have just like taken a clip from the entire Phillies post game show. Because
I'm sure Metallica went nuts.
Ricky Metallico crash out after the Phillies get swept at home because you could tell he hates the Mets so much. So it always just how Edwin Diaz brings joy to your life. Ricky Metallico brings joy to mine whenever I have to. I have the pleasure of sitting to him listen or listening to him sit down and freak out over the team and oh you gotta trade everybody and this
It
team.
brings me joy too because it's somebody who is not paid directly by the Phillies, but heavily influenced by the team. It goes on and it's really, I'm certain, biting his tongue to not use a bunch of four-letter words on live TV. So it helps me out a lot too, for sure. And it brings me much joy.
My favorite social media post was something that I found earlier today from at Harper Enjoyer says, quote, wouldn't be surprised if there's something fishy happening with the Mets with the way they've been able to get so lucky with their pitching. Maybe a sticky stuff scandal they are able to hide at home. I've never seen anything like this. And in parentheses, more response in the replies. And this guy attaches Griffin Canning's savant pages from 2024 and 2025. So as you can see in the 2024 is a bunch of blue circles, right? He sucks. In 2025, they're all red. And he's like, see, look, like there's no way Griffin Canning would be able to pitch good in 2025. They have to be cheating. And then the top response took the cake. I forget the guy's name, but he just types out, maybe you guys just suck dick. So that was great for me. It was funny because he posted it in a Phillies community, so like in the Phillies Twitter community, and he thought obviously that people were going to be on his back or on his side, saying like, yeah, the Mets are obviously cheating. There's no way they'd be able to pitch good against this incredible Phillies lineup. And all the responses were Phillies and Mets fans saying like, dude, you're an idiot. So I thought that was
That's one
funny.
of the few things that I'm objectively going to say, and I'm not going to be a glazer on the team. Um, right now, I will compliment the fans. Um, I think that it is for no, I have never met a genuine fan who watches on an almost daily basis that will ever make any kind of ridiculous, stupid excuse like that. When the team wins, Ricky Bottalico is still screaming on TV, and people are bitching a fit on Twitter about something. So I that view does not represent even even a big minority, so to speak. It is such a small fraction of the Philadelphia Phillies fan base. Because I promise, however bad people like national baseball fans and fans of other teams think the Phillies are doing, everybody at home here, I'm not in Philadelphia right now, but here, quote unquote, thinks they're doing 10 times worse. And I would, unless there was some Astro levels obvious cheating, I would never ever be like, oh, that team must be cheating. No, the Phillies just played terribly this week.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say that that encompasses the views of Philadelphia fans all over, but every fan base is the more of a fan base you have, the more of a chance that there's going to be some nuts that happen to support your team. So I'm fortunate that that guy spoke up and decided to help give me content for the next
Yeah,
last
yeah,
5 minutes.
yeah. Him and his tinfoil antenna really helped out this podcast.
Yeah. So moving on to our last segment today is going to be Fantasy Fridays, an all new segment. So we're basically just going to talk about some fantasy topics, some players that might be relevant for you and your leagues to help you take home those prizes. So we happen to be in the same league, so we can't divulge all of our secrets, obviously. Probably some of our listeners are listening to this podcast, or some of our league mates are listening to this
I
podcast.
hope our listeners are listening to this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, you're funny. So first thing I want to talk about is Oakland A's prospect Nick Kurtz called up. He had a 336 average with a 1.12 OPS in the minors, about 32 games played. He hit 11 home runs. So rough math, that's about a 50 home run pace. So I'm curious kind of what your expectations are for him for the rest of the season and even in dynasty formats.
So I'll caveat with, obviously it will, I think it will come down to earth at some point. I'm pulling up stats on my computer right now. Um, it's being slow, but I think the power numbers indicate that uh, he's a valuable fantasy asset. Because I think oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this too, prospects who come up in fantasy, you see these crazy high averages and a couple other things, and they're fantastic baseball players, and they are a great asset to the team in which they play on. That does not mean they are necessarily a good fantasy baseball player. I think this guy's. power potential and clearly what he's shown so far makes him look like he could be somebody who is a strong asset. Um,
Yeah,
that obviously remains to be seen, but
yeah, I think it does help though that he's playing in the Sacramento park for at least a couple years, right? So that's kind of a AAA environment. You've already started to see that it's kind of, I don't know about inflating, but it's not, certainly not suppressing some of the numbers for these guys. Tyler Soderstrom's a notable
he's
name that
playing like an MVP right now in
yeah.
the American League. Yes.
Yeah. So that being in that ballpark and playing 81 games there could certainly help his case. Another former top prospect, Dylan Cruz, is now on an 8-game hitting streak after starting the season abysmally. It seems that he's finally starting to find his groove. I'm not sure if he's all the way back. I've certainly fell victim to the, having a hot stretch and then forgetting how to swing a bat again. I'm still out. The jury's still out on Brett Beatty, even though he looked like Barry Bonds against Zach Wheeler in the whatever second inning of Game 3. But yeah, he's somebody that could potentially be a contributor down the line, despite not having a great start.
Yep, I would agree.
Another pitcher, or sort of, I guess we're going to transition to deep sleeper pitchers. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Andrew Heaney and what he's been able to do so far.
Yeah, he has been so I have so my pick of the draft I've declared myself so far is has been Bryce Terang. My free agent pickup so far has been Andrew Heaney. Obviously he is going to come back down to earth right now because his numbers are Cy Young worthy at the moment, and I do not think Andrew Heaney is going to sniff the top 20 in the NL Cy Young. But he something that the Pittsburgh Pirates are pitching coaches are doing with him is clearly working. He has not gone below 5 innings in a start this year at all. And his worst start was 6 innings, 4 runs, and 6 strikeouts. Not a great start by any stretch of the imagination, but if that is that's your worst possible start, 6 turns through the rotation, you're looking pretty good. His last two outings have been what has sort of made me pick him as this guy I want to talk about as a sleeper. Last night he threw 6 innings against the Angels and struck out 9, let up 1 hit, which was good for a whip of .17, excuse me. Um, and actually, he started off great. He threw 2 innings and struck out all 6 guys. So he was looking great. And then the start before that against Washington, he threw 7 and a third innings with 4 strikeouts. Good for a .95 whip. So I think, and this depends a little bit on the type of league you're playing in, because I don't think he's going to be a big strikeout guy. He has 2 starts where he's had some pretty good strikeout numbers. One of them actually against the Yankees, striking out 10, which was great. Um, but he's not going to be somebody who racks you up some strikeouts in fantasy, but he is good. He is good for somebody to bring down your team ERA. I think he's good for that. Everything except for his start against Cincinnati, in which he let up 4 runs, um, has been quality start worthy so far. He's got low whip for the most part too, so he's a solid all around pitcher, I think. Obviously, depends a little bit on some of the stats you use in your league, but he's been a fantastic pickup so far. His next start is Tuesday the 29th against the Cubs. And based on our league, at least, I don't know if the Pirates have an off day thrown in there, but that means he should throw twice next week, again on Sunday, again, bearing if there's no off day on Thursday.
Yeah, so definitely an underrated pickup for sure. And every year we have at least it feels like one or two random pitchers that are kind of journeyman veterans that end up having great years and are pretty coveted at the deadline. So for all we know, he's one of those guys so far. He's certainly one of the leading candidates.
Yep, yep. Let's hope because I need some bats. So I'll put him on the block in a second if anybody in our league's listening. The phones are on.
Yeah. One thing we wanted to also discuss in terms of Fantasy Fridays are potentially relievers in both the American and National League that could help your team out despite not necessarily having the closer role, as a lot of leagues utilize saves plus holds or wait holds somewhat, and even if they don't, At least for our league, for instance, we have 3 reliever spots per team, 12 teams. So you can do the math. That's 36 reliever spots. So not everyone's going to get a closer. So who are some guys that could potentially help your team out despite not necessarily being the fireman? So with that, I wanted to go into some of the guys from the AL. So one of the people, well, before that, actually, first, I want to talk about Mason Miller, even though he's a closer, because what this guy's doing right now is ridiculous. I'll read the stats. Only 8 innings pitched, granted. 0 ERA. He's had 7 saves, so it appears that he has gotten the save in basically every appearance. His strikeout percentage is 60.7%. I believe over nine, that is like 17 or 18. Something actually, no, it's got to be more, right? Because if it's over nine. But it's ridiculous. 60% K rate is unbelievable. Whip of 0.63. So what he's doing right now is just mind-boggling. But with that said, I want to get into some of the setup guys. One guy that's particularly interesting for me, Fernando Cruz of the New York Yankees. As much as it pains me to give credit to somebody from that garbage team across town, he's had a strikeout rate of 42%, 0.92 WHIP, 2.08 ERA in 13 innings. This is a guy that has been locked down. And obviously the job is Devin Williams for the foreseeable future, given what they traded to get him, even though he stinks. Fernando Cruz has been somebody that's been heavily reliable or highly reliable in that bullpen, and is someone that could potentially help you with the K's department and help lower your ratios.
Yeah, he was a guy that was on my radar, actually. I was talking to one of the guys in our league about giving up one of my closers, which has actually been an under appreciated spot on my roster. But he's been at the top of my list solely because it's like two reasons. Obviously, he's not pulling saves, but he gets the strikeouts and he gets the innings too. And every once in a while, that slight dip in ERA or WHIP from a reliever that goes over an inning maybe once or twice could be huge. So he's definitely been on my radar.
Yeah, for sure. Another guy that I want to talk about was somebody from the Guardians. So I've had the pleasure of watching him. Was Hunter Gaddis, converted starter. Over 9 2/3 innings. He's had an ERA also of 0. Strikeout percentage of 38.5%. So again, um, very high, and a whip of 1.14. So he's another guy actually. So a little anecdote about him. So the first time that I have heard of Hunter Gaddis was a game that I went to. It was Guardians Yankees. I want to say 2 years ago. He was making a spot start, and he had the privilege of pitching against Garrett Cole. So needless to say, the Yankees were up, I want to say like 10-3 in the third inning. This guy was awful. He sat like 89, and he's a big dude. If you've seen Hunter Gaddis, you know he's like 250. He looks like he could be a wrestler. Like he's like 6'6", 250. He comes out to like a Viking theme song. I'm not even joking. It's pretty sick. But he was not sick in that outings. But eventually they decided to convert him to a reliever. He picked up a ton of velocity on his fastball, and clearly he's been very effective this year.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. I'm gonna jump us over to the NL, just for time here. We've been babbling quite a bit. So to start off on our list, we have Kirby Yates, has been around for I can't even remember how long this guy has been pitching in Major League Baseball. Currently with the Dodgers. 11, he's thrown 11 2/3 this year. ERA just over 3. Strikeout rate approaching 50% at 48.9 and a 1.03 whip. So a little bit higher of an ERA than some of the other guys we've discussed so far, but a strikeout rate approaching 50% is really good. So he's thrown almost 12 innings. So he's struck out for argument's sake, without going into the decimals, 12 guys, um, which is pretty good. That's solid for a reliever who's not getting saves.
Yeah. Another
Um,
thing about Kirby Yates, before we go on for it, just real quick, I looked at his game outings because I was curious where the ERA came from. He really had 2 blow-up outings, where I think he had one instance where he gave up 2 earned runs without getting a single out. So I think besides those 1 or 2 outlier outings, he's been pretty incredible so far.
yeah, I would agree. Yeah, he came in. He came in against the Phillies a few times when the Dodgers were playing in Philadelphia last week, I guess. Um, Next up, one of my favorite Phillies at the moment because it's the only guy that can throw a baseball that doesn't get obliterated in the bullpen. Matt Strom, uh, who has thrown just over 11 innings this year with a 1.59 ERA, 33 and a third strikeout percentage, and a .97 whip. He is a perfect example of what I was talking about before with Fernando Cruz. He is undoubtedly somebody that's going to get multiple innings quite a few times this year. And uh, obviously by his 1.59 ERA so far, he's a guy that's going to lock it down as a setup guy. More times than not, he has been known for the occasional blow up outing. Um, and the biggest concern with me with him, and he's kept his whip down this year, which is good. He walks a lot of guys sometimes, so that's the only reason actually that he has not been on my list to watch. But if you have a deep lead, a lot of teams and relief and multiple relief spots, he's certainly somebody that I would recommend picking up.
Yeah, for sure. And then our last guy to highlight is somebody that's I'm finding out for the first time as of recently. Somebody named Randy Rodriguez, reliever from the San Francisco Giants. A little bit about him: he's had 12 and two-thirds innings, another 0.00 ERA, K percentage of 37.1, and then a .62 WHIP. So for somebody that is I've really heard nobody talk about. He's been very, very good for the Giants, and they've had a nice start to the season as well. I've noticed they have a lot of interesting arms in that bullpen. I'll say that. Between Doval, who famously lost his job last year by being awful, and then Ryan Walker, who is the closer this year and is now awful now, giving up, I think, 3 or 4 runs in the last two outings and effectively killing my ratios on back to back weeks. So maybe he'll be the closer. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I want to touch on just two things in fantasy news before we go to um, Cole Reagans started today, game one against Colorado for the Royals, and has apparently left the game with an injury earlier today. He said he was removed for groin tightness, which is not good news for a pitcher. Just first of all, it is not good news for me, who paid a fortune for him in our auction draft. It remains to be seen whether he is going to miss a start or not. If I was a betting man, I would say that he's going to, especially with the groin tightness. So
Yeah,
something to keep an eye on.
I think he's been pretty injury prone in general, so it wouldn't surprise me if even just precautionarily they decide to have him miss a start.
Yep, I would tend to agree with you. And this is mostly for the people who are in deeper leagues like we are, where we gotta kind of scrape the bottom sometimes. But I've seen his percentage roster go up and down quite a bit on ESPN, so I figured it was worth talking about. Jake Mangum was put on the IL today, and he has been having just an absolutely absurd start to the season. Um, with 23 hits and 68 at bats, four doubles, seven RBIs, eight stolen bases, no home runs or triples yet. I don't think he is known as much of a power guy. He is a serious on base producer, though, and a serious stolen base guy. He was just placed on the IL today. So if you don't have a deep league with 10 plus teams, this guy is probably not on your radar whatsoever. But he has been on mine for a while because he's been having such a great start. So I was disappointed to see him go on the injured list.
Yeah, I've followed him for a little bit too. He's between him, Cameron Meisner, the Rays have had a lot of guys that have seemingly came out of nowhere to be real contributors
Yeah,
for their
yeah,
team.
absolutely. Yeah. So they'll be hurting after his loss. Yeah, my super rotation has not held up today so far.
Yeah, Crochet started right. He had a pretty he
Crochet
had
had a rough outing today.
yeah
Still
yeah.
struck out nine over five, but yeah, four runs in 5 innings, and Reagan's 4 runs in 3 innings. Both those guys ballooned my ERA for the week. Um,
Well, it's better than where I'm at, where I'm playing Brad, and Brad has hit 9 home runs in 4 days against me. So I don't
we
like.
were we were all crapping on his team, and he flew up to second place this
I mean,
week.
when you draft your whole team in an auction draft in the first hour and then leave the draft room for 2 hours, like I was that's doesn't get more studs and scrubs than that.
Yeah,
But
yep.
I guess it's working for him. So, with that said, that'll wrap us up for today on episode 2 of the excuse me, of Chin Music Podcast. We're gonna be back with episode 3, hopefully Tuesday, this Tuesday. Hopefully with a special guest, bringing somebody on potentially from our fantasy league and somebody that has some experience with some radio broadcasting and unfortunately a Yankees fan. So that'll be interesting.
He's
Stay
got a bit of
tuned.
a social media following himself too, which I'm sure he will discuss within moments of joining the podcast. Uh, because he does not end the baseball conversation without it. But so we'll give all that. I'm sure he'll give all that information on Tuesday next week. But yeah, he's certainly somebody with some experience and has engaged quite a bit with the Yankee fan base, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. So with that said, that wraps up our episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.